And welcome to my channel. This channel is focused on discussions on Igbo spirituality, Odinaani. Now, our purpose, our intention here is to basically grow and improve the Igbo consciousness by basically explaining some of these Igbo concepts like Chi, Awo, Alasi, Okwu Nwa-Ada, and all. So for today, I want to discuss about Okwu Nwa-Ada. What is Okwu Nwa-Ada? Okwu Nwa-Ada is a deep-rooted spiritual problem that manifests due to the mistreatment of a woman by her husband, by her community, or by her lineage. This mistreatment of a woman encompasses a wide range of issues, starting from domestic violence, the negligence of the family, and her community in addressing her sufferings in the hands of her spouse, and the harrowing experiences of women who were either captured, sold as slaves, or forcibly subjected to ritual sacrifices. Now, what am I trying to say here? Now, basically, any woman that suffers and dies as a result of domestic violence, her essence, her energy manifests as Okwu Nwa-Ada. It becomes a troubling issue that the host family will need to fix. Now, because in our society, we believe that marriage is EJD, which means that a woman just goes to marry, have children, have that kind of a fresh or a new experience. We believe that if a lineage, a family still owns the woman, she still belongs to her people. This is why when a woman dies, her body is supposed to be buried in her family's house. Now, which means that in these situations, when she's suffering in the hands of her spouse or in the hands of people, and her family and her community refuse to come to her intercessions, now this becomes a problem. She will now begin to punish the family, the community, and then she will begin to punish the entire community and her lineage for this particular negligence. Now, for women that were forcibly used as sacrifices, now they also manifest as Okwu Nwa-Ada, or people that were sold, women that were sold as slaves. Their essence, their energy becomes vengeful, and it materializes into what Igbo refers to as Okwu Nwa-Ada. The essence of this problem, the essence of Okwu Nwa-Ada, is to basically, for this essence, this energy, this vengeful spirit, to get retribution from the family or from the people that offended her. Therefore, she's disturbing them and affecting them in order to compel a sacrificial appeasement to basically placate her relentless spirits, therefore enabling her to basically undergo the process of reincarnation or Jezoike. Now, without that being done, she's going to be restless. She's not going to basically reincarnate. She's just going to be around, hanging around until she gets her revenge, and this family understands what they've done, abuses her energy or her essence, and basically retributes for the crime they committed against her. Now, again, in many instances, this vengeful spirit of the woman could take refuge with the protective embrace of a deity, allowing her to basically attain justice through the deity. Now, for this energy, she could feel it's not something that she can do alone, and she would go into a deity. We call this thing more banalose. And for some people, when they go for divination, they will tell them there's a vengeful spirit, there's a feminine energy that was ill-treated back in the day, and this her energy ran into a deity so that the deity would basically help her to basically achieve justice. So this is what Igbo we refer to as more banalose. Now, in our physical life, we do something like that when we talk about the Osu people. Osu, we look at them as people that run into a deity, for a deity to protect them against injustice, to protect them from being captured and sold as slaves and all those things. So they will basically run into a deity. So spiritually, we also have this same manifestation. That is more banalose. Now, the energy goes into the embrace of a deity, and through that deity, the woman is going to from there try to basically seek, and she's going to attain that justice, except the family decides to be blind to their reality or to what is actually going on in their community or in their lineage. But for some people, when they wake up and they recover or they observe that there is a problem, they begin to seek out solutions through divinations and through finding out why this thing is happening, and basically performing the rites that are supposed to tackle and solve that problem. Fortunately, resolving issues of Okwu Nwa-Ada cannot be achieved through Christian family liberations, because already they have already viewed this thing as it's been demonic, leading to attempts to basically eliminate this vengeful spirit instead of seeking a more compassionate approach, which is basically, which is them would involve seeking for forgiveness and retribution for the sufferings and the hardship that led to the manifestation of Okwu Nwa-Ada in the first place. Now, this is where our ancestors were better than these people. Now, you call these people for family liberation. They don't want to understand what happens. Why is this thing actually happening? They are only interested in praying and kabashing with the intentions of basically forcibly eliminating that essence. But our ancestors understand, or they understood, that you need to know the root cause of a phenomenon for you to be able to attack, or for you to be able to settle it. So they first of all go to divination to understand why is this happening. Then from understanding why it is happening, they can now solve it. There are so many ways of solving this problem, and each of those ways depend on the request or the gravity of the crime and the injustice that was committed on this woman. So the first one is that some of these family are going to raise an altar, Okwu Nwa-Ada, Okwu Nwa-Ada, an effigy, and Obosi, an altar that is dedicated to this woman. So that's where they'll communicate with her. They will leave kola nut for her. They will leave, drinks, and they will leave animals for her. So they will first of all search and know what they will do. But for some people, they're going to raise an altar. Now, for some other people, it would require them dedicating a live animal, most preferably a cow. They would dedicate that cow and say, we are using this cow to basically, replace what we lost. And from there, nobody is going to kill that cow, nobody is going to eat it, and they would continue to replace it. They will allow that cow to basically be useful for them, which means that the particular cow that has been dedicated will just be bred. They will basically use it, and every offspring that comes out from that particular cow would be used for any purpose that they want to. They can sell it, they can kill it, they can do anything they want to do with it. But for that particular one that has been dedicated, they're not going to touch it. And each time that one dies a natural death or something happens to it, they are going to replace that particular cow. Now, most of the elders that I've asked says that because such woman is supposed to live out her life, having children that are going to children that are going to take care of her in her old age, but because those kinds of luxury was not given to her, her right wasn't given to her, then it's required that they replace her essence, symbolically replace her with that particular cow to basically serve that purpose that she was meant to serve in her time before what happened to her. So it's essential to emphasize that Okwu Nwa-Ada is uniquely a feminine issue. It's uniquely a feminine issue without a direct masculine counterpart. Because throughout my research and going around and asking people, I've not really seen them say something like Okwu Mokorobia or Okwu. No, there is nothing like that. Now, one of the elders I asked said is because women don't really have this loyalty. Don't have this loyalty to a particular family. What she knows is her own. If you deal with her, she's going to deal with you back. That we feminine energies are these hot-headed individuals. But for some men, because they feel that they still have a stake in the ancestral lineage or in that community, they feel that they should not, be too hard on them. But for women, that you are married into that community. So if you want to deal with that community, you don't have any roots to that community, so you can actually do what you want to do. So this is why. Then another reason again is that I said here that now unfortunately women have historically been vulnerable to domestic violence more than men. It's a fact. How many men are you going to say that their wives beat them and kill them at the end of the day? It's quite a reasonable low number. Now, historically, women have been more vulnerable to domestic violence more than men. And additionally, in spiritual terms, feminine energies tends to be more powerful, or they exhibit a greater intensity when they are being provoked than the male counterparts. Now, it is also worth knowing that contrary to the popular beliefs that Igbo culture discriminates against women, certain practices like this Okwu Nwa-Ada prevented some of these, women were subjugated in ancient times, because most people don't want to get themselves into this kind of catastrophic manifestation, because people take it lightly. But most elders I've communicated with told me that some families had been closed down. As their lineage were eliminated because of the prevalence of these particular issues. They kept dying, and they kept giving birth to just mainly female children, which basically led to the extinctions of some of these families, and it's circulated under this principle of or issues of Okwu Nwa-Ada. Now, practices like this or perceptions like this Okwu Nwa-Ada, imego otari, or nwanyi no nwoke ananisi, which basically the culture where if a man is guilty of domestic violence, the community women comes together and they basically stand on his gate and they question him. Sometimes they can be violent because they need him to answer, and later he's going to come and answer them. So, and also the belief of deities that go to a marriage or go to marriage with women. So all those things and more, like institutions like Umuada, Ndi Yomdi, and Igbo, and there's this other one is an equivalent of also in my community. So these are institutions that basically prevented anything about subjugating women in our culture. But because most times we don't really know most of these explanations, we don't really know our culture well enough, we perceive or we think that Igbo culture, indigenous cultures basically subjugated women, and mostly people say it when they talk about polygamy. But these are like misconceptions that people just basically pick a sector and they just run with it, and know again that some of these cultures has been adulterated, like the Ihachinwani that I talked about. Most of these cultures has been spoiled and corrupted, that we don't necessarily have the right information to actually work with. But when we look at the institutions, the spiritual foundations that were laid down, because the spiritual institutions of Ndi Igbo has not really moved or changed. It has not moved or changed. Now, if I want to get married tomorrow, my ancestral feminine spirits are going to go to me, are going to follow me, escort me to my husband's house. It is there, it still exists. So when you look at the spiritual foundations, the spiritual practices of Ndi Igbo, this is where we can basically get some of the answers that we practically seek. Now, finally, another cause of this phenomenon of Okwu Nwa-Ada is when you don't perform the proper burial rites of a woman, it can actually cause one of these issues. Now, in Nnewi, for instance, I've said it before in my channel, if you marry an Nnewi, because originally women are supposed to be buried in their husband, in their father's house, but because of the church and all those things, people no longer do it. So in my community, if you want to bury a woman, you bury that woman in two places. You bury that woman in her father's house, and you would also bury her in her husband's house at the same time, simultaneously. So imagine if you don't do one of those cultures, it is going to be a problem. And other cultures and others, covert or overt practices, funeral rites and funeral burial rites, we view it as a right that a person should have for living life and basically, having kids, and all those things. So if you don't do it, it is going to manifest as Okwu Nwa-Ada na akwara akwa. It is going to result to any of those things. So we've come to the end of the road, and if you like this conversation, my explanations, and please subscribe and share and comment. If you have any further questions, you can always reach out to me on Instagram at Odinaani, and my website is www.igboshrine.com, or TikTok at Igbo Shrine, or Facebook at Odinaani. So you can basically look, hit me up and I can answer some of the questions that you have. So until next time, yeah guys, yeah.